All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Socialist Majority Slate introductory call. For some of you, this might not be the first time that you're meeting any of our candidates, and hopefully I've encountered these folks all across the organization, whether joining the work as on a national committee as part of your chapter, or at any one of our countless events across the last few years. My name is Christian Hernandez. I use she, her pronouns. I am based in North Texas, and I'm an incumbent member of the NPC, outgoing member of the NPC, and really glad to be here with y'all tonight. I am going to just very quickly talk about what it means to be an NPC member from my perspective. It is a really challenging time to be a socialist in the US. It's a very challenging time to be part of an organization. I think there's definitely an impulse to not see the value of organizing in this moment, to sort of cling to what you know true, and to not really put yourself out there. So it's really great to see that we're continuing to recruit and retain members, to develop people into leaders. And frankly, I'm very heartened by the fact that we have so many people who've chosen to run for NPC, which is by no means an easy task. Again, particularly because of the political moment and the political terrain, and the number of crises that we have before us. So it's absolutely crucial that we have a strong national leadership who can really handle some of those big political questions, but also help steer the organization in a way that's resilient, in a way that is militant, and in a way that meets the demands of this moment. So being an NPC member, ideally we want to have folks who are visible in this work, who are doing the important work of growing the organization, who are loyal to the organization as a vehicle for all of the many demands that we're constantly working on. And you'll hear more about the type of work that our candidates are doing when they do these introductions. But again, they're coming back from a very broad spectrum of experience, of being able to say that they've helped grow their chapter, that they've helped grow DSA, and that they've won campaigns. Because in this moment, winning means a lot. The left needs wins to continue growing. So I won't belabor the point. Again, was very honored to serve on the NPC for 2 terms, and now extremely excited to help support and mentor not only our SMC cohort, but ultimately the next NPC, and making sure that we have a strong national leadership for the moments ahead. So with that, we are going to have candidates introduce themselves, and talk a little bit about the work that they've done, but they will also be introed by folks who know them best. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Dan.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Dan. I'm a member of Metro Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky DSA, and I get to say a few words about my comrade and friend Sarah Callahan today. So for the past 3 years, I've gotten to know Sarah through work on several different campaigns together. As secretary and new member coordinator, you have no video. Oops. Can you see me now? Oh, well. I'll just keep going. So for the past 3 years, I've gotten to know Sarah through our work on several different campaigns together. As secretary and new member coordinator of our chapter, Sarah streamlined our orientation program so that new members are promptly and warmly welcomed into our chapter so that they can comfortably start organizing with us. So because we're on the border of Ohio and Kentucky, we get to fight not 1, but 2 Republican reactionary state legislatures. Sarah's played a key role as an organizer in our chapter's fight for abortion access in both states. She's currently leading our chapter's efforts in Ohio against Issue 1, a proposal aimed to further limit democracy and attack abortion rights. Sarah also serves on the Growth and Development Steering Committee nationally. Sarah is a strong and passionate organizer with the experience and commitment needed to nurture and grow our organization. Comrades, I'm thrilled to introduce you to DSA National Political Committee candidate, Sarah Callahan. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm blushing. Thank you, Dan. So a little bit about me. I started organizing in 2016 in Alabama with Bernie 2006, or Bernie's campaign in 2016. And then I moved up to Cincinnati. So I joined in about 2020, where I quickly became the new member on boarder, graphic design, YDSA mentor, and focusing on member recruitment and getting our chapter to run really well. So making a newsletter, things like that, just helping get out the word about the really cool stuff our chapter was doing. In 2021, I became chapter secretary, where I led an overhaul of the new member onboarding system. So we were able to keep up with like the massive waves of people coming in and making sure everyone was able to be meet and greeted and have one-on-ones. Right now, I'm currently leading the chapter effort on No on One, which we just had this fight in Kentucky last election season. So we are back at it again with a special election on August 8th. So running the campaign, running the canvases, and then we are hopefully going to win so we can fight for further abortion rights in this November. I believe I can strengthen the NPC by ensuring that we have all the fundamentals of running a strong organization. My time in DSA Cincinnati has definitely prepped me for this and what it like member onboarding, what we need to have a strong organization. I want to increase the effort to bring new people into DSA and to really improve our communication between locals and national, which I've seen just be essential. I'm now on the National Political Education Committee, Steering Committee, and just seeing all these small chapters really want help with political education, which I think is really great. And last thing I want to say is we want DSA to be a really strong organization and not just like different chapters operating by themselves. So I really believe in like a strong national org. And with that, I will pass it back to Christian. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Well, I will get the great honor of doing the next introduction. I will be introducing y'all to Colleen, another candidate for the NPC. I've had the great pleasure of working with Colleen on the Growth and Development Committee over the last few years, and particularly seeing her leadership with the recommitment drive. This type of work is not as external facing as other work, so it's maybe not as alluring to folks. You don't get to take any, cool pictures while you're doing it, but it's, I would say, single-handedly the most important work of our organization. It is the lifeblood of the organization. It is the bread and butter of organizing. It is how we are able to make sure that the folks that we're capturing with these events, that we are talking to, are able to come into the organization. And I have seen how Colleen has been diligent with this work, has done all the beautiful work of making sure that people are committed to DSA, that people understand the sometimes really confusing aspects of the organization, and has done this with so much grace and so much patience for the folks that are coming in, that are asking questions, that have hesitations and concerns, and also doing it in a way that's scaling our work. It's not just one-on-one conversations, it's the ability to bring in huge swaths of people. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Colleen to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Christian, and thank you all for being here. You could be doing a lot of things on a Sunday, but you chose to engage with us, so I really appreciate you taking the time. My name is Colleen. I use she, her, they pronouns. I'm a member of Denver DSA, but I am also from the upper Midwest, and I'll try not to say the same stuff I've said on other things if you've been checking out like the other things for NPC candidates, but I joined DSA in 2017 as part of the Trump-Bernie bump, but like my background and who I am and the community that I come from is really why I'm a socialist. I come from a working class background and community in the upper Midwest, as I mentioned, a community where most of my peers in high school, after they graduated high school, if they graduated, would join the military or go directly into the workforce. And I myself went into community college and was actually one of the last cohorts to graduate from my Wisconsin community college before Scott Walker totally dismantled the system through Act 10 and attacked public unions, and was sort of that testing ground for right-wing practices that we're seeing way more across the United States now. And that was really something that moved me on a path to socialism. That, and then also, being kind of upwardly mobile from a working class background. I worked in a factory for 3 years to pay for college. Both of my parents were union members. I was the first in my family to go to college, and all of that. And that's why for me, socialism and being in DSA is not just kind of an academic exercise. It's something that's very real to me. I'm still connected to my hometown community in a lot of really important ways. And so when we talk about like rural areas or small chapters, I'm thinking about my hometown where I first started organizing. And, as Christian mentioned, I care very deeply about, what I see as our foundational task in this organization, which is to develop our collective organizing skills and capacity so that we can effectively meet this incredible moment that we're in. And to me, that means having a laser focus on developing organizers and their concrete skills, supporting chapters in building sustainable organizations with the ability to run strategic campaigns that have material demands, and that will shift power to the working class. And so, I did this in my chapter. I built our internal organizing committee. I was on chapter steering when we were kind of first getting started as a chapter, and built out a ton of capacity and leadership through those new member onboarding practices and internal organizing practices. And then I've carried that into the GDC as well. And, through my work on the recommitment drive, which was absolutely a collective effort, but really built a lot of collective capacity for chapters. It built evergreen tools, things that we can continue using into the future to build the sustainable organization that I think a lot of people at this point agree that we really need. And, I also have experience as a union member. I worked on union staff for a couple of years, helping union members build up their union and develop the skills that they needed. And I was also an elected leader of my union as well. And we really worked to kind of transform our union into an organizing and fighting union as well. So thanks. I think that's my time, but happy to dig into more with questions that you all might have.
Thanks so much, Colleen. Now I'm going to pass it over to Susan to introduce our next candidate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Kang, and I had the pleasure and luck of meeting Rael Almonte as a student, and he's a senior in my research seminar in 2018, which happened to be the year in which a surprise candidate won in the district that both of us were living in, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Perhaps you've heard of her. And I don't want to proselytize to my students, but when I met Rael, I had like those DSA eyes around him, like if I were a cartoon character with dollar signs in my eyes. I was like, I got to get this incredibly mature, funny, hardworking, Bronx native, New York City guy into DSA. He's got such great political instincts, but how am I going to do it? And it just so happened that he asked questions after AOC won, and somebody once asked me, can you get me another student to volunteer for a DSA like Rael? And I said, oh, I've been working at John Jay for 15 years, and it took me 10 years to meet someone like Rael. I'm not going to be another person like him for another lifetime. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate that. Thank you all for being here. I really love seeing you guys here. Like Susan said, my name is Rael Monterreyes. I was involved in some campaigns with DSA prior to 2021, but I formally joined DSA in 2021 at the behest of Susan. She pushed me to do it, so thank you for that. And has since represented my branch at 2 chapter conventions. I serve on the citywide leadership committee and have served on the Bronx and Upper Manhattan OC and the Electoral Working Group OC. I've had the privilege of working on several legislative and electoral campaigns, including Kristen Gonzalez, Vanessa Gudelos, David Alexis, Good Cause, and New Deal for CUNY. I am currently working with comrades in the citywide electoral working group to recruit candidates for our next electoral cycle and helping push to form a New York State DS. It's about time. I'm really, really excited to be running for NPC because I really want to work with chapters across the country and comrades across the country to grow our organization and the socialist movement. I particularly look forward to working with the Multiracial Organizing Committee and the NEC, along with many other committees on the national level to push the necessary work to make DSA a mass multiracial working class organization that can win legislative, electoral, or any type of campaign everywhere where we have chapters. I'm super excited to be running for leadership. not only because of all of the things that I said, but because I am a red diaper baby. My family were leftists in the Dominican Republic, and they were always involved in politics. So just getting more involved with our organization that we love so much is super exciting for me. Thank you so much, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Rael, and thank you, Susan, for showing us the importance of asking people to join DSA and getting folks to become DSA members. I believe we have a fancy video for our next introduction.
DSA member, and I've done most of my. Hi, my name is Tasha Van Auken. I'm an NYC DSA member, and I've done most of my work in the Brooklyn Electoral Working Group, as well as worked on our Tax the Rich campaigns and managed Julia Salazar and Farah Souffrant Forrest campaigns. I'm really excited to introduce Renee Paradis as a candidate for NPC. I've worked with Renee a lot over the years. I think most significantly in my memory is that she and I worked together quite a bit, along with others, of course, developing and building the Brooklyn Electoral Working Group in its early days. And through that, worked with her on our first big electoral campaign in 2017, the Khader El Yatim campaign. And then worked very closely with her on Julia Salazar's campaign and Tiffany Caban's campaign. We also worked together on the national level on the National Bernie Committee, as well as the NEC for the first couple of years. I think the main things that I want to say about Renee is that she is definitely one of the most passionate people I know in DSA and deeply, deeply committed to helping to build this democratic organization. And she, I think, is always willing to debate important questions in good faith, is very strategic, amazing at thinking strategically about ways to move forward. And I think also brings with her just an enormous amount of knowledge that has helped us build our work in both in New York City and I think nationally. I think she's super committed to DSA's work on the local level and the national level. I trust her so much to be thoughtful, to debate with others like the best paths forward, and I think really importantly to do the work to organize to move our priorities forward. I think she's incredibly interested in seeing this incredible and unique organization continue to grow. And I'm really excited that she's running for NPC, and yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Paradis. I'm coming to you from beautiful Sonoma County, where I'm visiting my father, which is this is where I grew up. Like DSA, I'm a Gen Xer born in March. I'm the oldest of our NPC candidates, and when I came into DSA, it was after about a decade and a half of legal experience. I my parents are both professional managerial class. My mother was a nurse and my father's a psychologist. And I always thought that I would sort of go into public interest law and do work that would help push the project forward of perfecting, a left liberal vision of America. And after I graduated from law school in 2003, I worked on voting rights, I worked on abortion rights, and I worked as a criminal defense lawyer on an appointed basis for people who couldn't afford counsel. And in all three of those experiences, two of them in national nonprofits and the one on my own as a solo practitioner, it became clear to me that the problem with the legal system wasn't rights, or wasn't whether or not we had the best legal arguments. It was that poor people couldn't access abortion and voting and were being terrorized by the criminal legal system. And I felt as though my original vision for being an activist, for being this kind of good progressive where I would do my part and other people would do theirs, and eventually we'd perfect the system, was just absolutely insufficient to the problems we had. And I began to move rapidly left. And after the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016, which I worked for as the National Voter Protection Director for a few months, I joined DSA and became sort of a full bore Democratic Socialist. And for me, it's just an issue of sort of fact that if we don't end the profit motive, that we are going to be unable to change the way that we live and the way that our current system keeps down the working class and keeps giving more to the ruling class. And so I joined DSA in part because I believe the only thing that could fight back against that was mobilize people. That the sort of elite theory of change is just completely wrongheaded and inadequate, and that what we have to do is pull together people and organize them into a political framework that allows us to exercise our power as people. And so that became even more pressing to me after Trump won, and I decided I could no longer just rely on the work I was doing in my day job. And I went to 15 different meetings of all these various groups that were organizing in New York at the time. And we're going to hear from her later, but I remember Sia Weaver up on stage talking at my first DSA meeting about the Crown Heights Tenants Union and the fight for the Bedford Armory, and connecting it to sort of the broader issue of decommodifying the housing market, making housing a human right. And then through this work, we would build DSA and we would build towards socialism. And it was that pairing of good work on the local level with a broad vision for the future that brought me into this organization. And I'm running for NPC because I've always had the thought that you should do what you're best at and in the movement. And I've had a lot of experience providing legal advice to chapters around all kinds of legal issues. I'm familiar with issues of nonprofit governance. I think I'd be an asset on the NPC. Many people I've met often think I've previously served a term because of how much I'm familiar with and know about how national works. So I'm running because I think I can help bring us into the next level. Anyway, I'm out of time. On to the next candidate. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Renee, and thanks, Tasha. So our next guest is McCall, who will be introducing our next NPC candidate.
Hello, everyone. I am Mikhail. I am one of the co-chairs of Detroit DSA, and I'm very happy to introduce Mel, one of my closest friends. I think that she is truly, in the best terms possible, a shining example of a lot of the great traits that our organization should uphold and fight for, especially focusing on the importance of making sure that things happen materially for Black and brown working class people. I in my years being, I believe, the first Black co-chair of Detroit DSA and one of the youngest, the leadership and mentorship that I've gotten from Mel in so many different aspects has just simply shown me the love that they have for the movement, for the dedication, for everything that we do. And to see her take that work and that vision to a national body for an organization that I have dedicated so much time into, I'm very happy to introduce her. So there goes Mel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melina, or Mel, she, her pronouns. Thank you so much for that, Mikhail, and thank you, everybody, for being here. And it's so good to hear about the folks I'm running with. I'm so impressed by my Slate mates. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm a Chicana who was born and raised in East LA. Though I've been in Detroit now for almost 5 years, it's getting really close to that, which is wild. I've been active in DSA since 2015. but I was a member for way before that. But it was Bernie's first run that kind of brought me out of my shell a little bit and made me actually become active. And since then, I've been most active in our eco-socialist and Green New Deal work. And I have also been active in our multiracial organizing committee. And those are kind of like the national level things I've been doing. Though here locally in Detroit, I am a founding member of our Black and Brown Alliance, which is, Mikhail said this a little bit, but it's really important for me, for our organization to be a multiracial organization. It's definitely going to be one of my focuses on the NPC if I win, which I'm really running for that to inspire and mentor people like Mikhail and so many others in my chapter. Been really proud to work one-on-one with mostly queer people of color, and seeing folks come into their own leadership, and having people who I encouraged to be part of our leadership development training last year become our delegates and be in leadership makes me really proud of the work I've done. I'm also really interested in closing what I see as a gap between national and local chapters. Sometimes I talk to people from other locals and they just don't seem to know what resources exist from the national body. And so I really want to make that a focus of my work. And really, all our priorities are important to me. I've done a lot of labor related stuff, including connecting a organizing coffee shop to unite here using some of my network connections. I've been doing electoral work in some form since I was a teenager in DSA. That has meant I've canvassed so many doors, thousands upon thousands of doors in my time. And so I just really want to bring all that experience that I've accumulated in leadership in Detroit, including 2 years as co-chair. I just wrapped that up. I just really want to bring all that experience to the national body and just keep making our org the best org that we could make it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Mel. Sorry, I'm glad I'm trying to multitask eating lunch here. All right. Well, we have one more guest who will be introducing our last NPC candidate. So I'm going to pass it over to Sia.
Hey everybody, my name is Sia. I use she, her pronouns, and I am honored today to introduce Grace, who is running for NPC. I know Grace from her work in our electoral working group, co-chairing the electoral working group through a very hectic time in New York City DSA when our sort of slate of socialists in office expanded dramatically. So you know how good Grace is as an electoral organizer. I want to speak to her work or her qualities as a leader. Grace is a really brilliant organizer and a committed socialist. She's kind. She's also very brave and willing to navigate our chapter through really challenging and maybe contentious processes and landing at the end of them in a way where everybody feels good and everybody feels like they were heard. Grace, as the electoral co-chair, worked very hard to make sure that the most visible work that the chapter does, what is present in all the other parts of the chapter. So I'm in the housing working group, and Grace always made it feel like the elections are something that everyone could do in the chapter, no matter where they happen to find themselves doing work. And Grace is a great organizer because she always has an ask. She always has a way for you to plug in, and she always makes you feel like the work that you're doing matters and is going to move the needle along. I think we need those qualities on the NPC to build our organization and to move us into the next phase of DSA. And I really am excited to introduce Grace.
All right. Thank you so much, Sia. I love this. This is a great way to learn about comrades. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Grace Mauser, she, her. I've been a member of New York City DSA since 2018 and have been in a few different positions, branch organizing committee, which was really instrumental in understanding day-to-day organizing. But like Sia alluded to, most of my organizing has been in the electoral working group. So I'm currently actually in my 4th year on the OC. I've been in different positions within electoral OC, but as part of that, have helped create and spearhead a Slate fundraising strategy that I think could be replicated in other cities, but also help us figure out how we want to approach fundraising and member retention too at a national level. I've also helped develop and manage a robust is a nice word for it, at times chaotic endorsement process through multiple years with an ever-growing interest in the DSA endorsement in New York City. And I've really worked on and advised more than a dozen campaigns, probably more, but if I count them all, I might lose my mind. But I worked directly for Jabari Brisport during his 2020 campaign. And I've worked with all of our races, not in a paid capacity, but with all of our races nearly in 2021, 2020, and 2022. And I feel like DSA's role and my role and the role of other leaders was to really develop a Slate mentality with our races and sharing resources and creating a sense that we work together in campaigns, and that means that we work together if we win. So that this whole like candidate recruitment process, actual campaigning, it all feeds into the Socialist in Office Committee. So I'm running for NPC because I want to help other chapters find races that really build their chapter, build their membership, but also build collaborative relationships with electeds when they win that bring about material wins for working class people in their city, state, country, and really help build those SIs out. So I'm hoping that my perspective and approach to things, having worked primarily on external facing electoral and legislative campaigns, will help the NPC cultivate a collaborative and external facing mindset that will build our chapter over the many years to come. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Grace. All right, we are moving into the question portion of the call. So now it is on all of our lovely attendees to use our Q&A feature to ask questions, especially since my caucus mates have said that asking what's your favorite J-Lo rom-com is not a suitable question for this. Okay, so I am going to ask these questions here. So again, fill them in. I'll start with one. All right, we can, and I just want to make sure that I am clear on what our first question is. All right, so the first question: I appreciate the militant yet steady and constructive leadership shown by Christian over the last 2 years. Since SMC has many fewer candidates than there are NPC slots, do you have any coalition partners? So I'll just give it a minute to see who on the slate would like to tackle this question. All right, Renee, go ahead.
Hi all. So we're not in formal coalition with anyone. I think there are many folks on the groundwork slate, but also other slates that I've organized with in the past that I'm planning to vote for myself. I think that we're really hopeful that the democratized DSA proposal will pass. and that all of us will become members of a much larger body, and that we will run another series of elections to get even more voices and more people engaged. And then, you know, I think the great part about DSA, right, is that we have to work with one another. Like, we have to practice the skills of forging political relationships across ideological differences for the purpose of getting work done. So, you know, I think no matter who gets elected from our slate, from other slates, we're committed to figuring out how to make DSA stronger with whoever ends up in leadership.
Thank you so much, Renee. Also, thank you so much for that very nice compliment at the beginning of the question. All right, our next question that is coming in is, what is the biggest challenge facing DSA? So I'm going to give our slate mates a couple minutes to decide who will be answering that question. What is the biggest challenge, facing DSA? Who wants to tackle that? Very good question. All right, so I'm going to have Colleen and Rael answer that question. So I'll pass it over to Colleen first.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I think the thing that comes to mind for me when I hear that is just, again, the development of chapters and building kind of like a deep organizing culture in practice in our organization across the many different levels. I work on the GDC, and like one thing that is really clear is it's, you know, the development of chapters is really uneven. You have some chapters that are, you know, developing socialist and office programs and have run many external campaigns and maybe have like internal organizing practices that are built out and being carried out. And then you have some chapters where it's a smaller group of people, they're building that out for the first time, or maybe they've like gone into a period of being kind of latent and are trying to get restarted again. And I think we really can't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, the most important thing is like getting as many people as possible trained in all the different types of organizing skills, connecting them with resources, and getting people involved in concrete work. And I think, as some other folks have talked about in their intros, like building those layers between the organization and making the exchange of resources and lessons and like templates, and, you know, all of that is really important to, you know, learn from all of the work that everyone in this organization is doing, and then also making sure that those chapters are connected with the resources that they need.
Rael?
Yeah, 100% agree with Colleen here. I think when I hear this question, I think of it like in the most like abstract way that I possibly can. So it always, whenever this question is asked, the first thing that comes to mind, two things that come to mind, is one, the consolidation and growth of the right, far right, fascism, and two, just the demobilization that we've seen in the last 2 years from the left. I think across the board, people are demobilizing, and we really, really, really need to work towards making sure that our people don't get demobilized. And Colleen's answer is really, really important here. We have to make sure that we grow in a much more like leveled way, balanced way across the country, so that our chapters across the country, no matter where they are, can run campaigns, can build coalitions, can keep people in DSA and keep them fighting and organizing against the right, but also the center.
Thanks, Rael. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question then. And this is for any candidate. Is there any key event in your life or in the world that made you become a socialist or that made you join DSA? So let's see who wants to answer that. We'll go to Mel and then Sarah.
Yeah, so I honestly can't pinpoint any singular event. Rael, what he was saying about being a red diaper a socialist, I think it was what it was. I'm very much consider myself a lifelong activist. One of my core memories is my mom telling me about the United Farm Workers struggle when I was like 4, and then she took me to my first protest to protest the closure of my neighborhood library when I was about 5 or so, and since then have just always, you know, wanted to fight for a better world. So I didn't really have the language of calling myself a socialist until about 2009, when I learned a pretty neutral definition of socialism from my amazing political science teacher at East LA College. And then so what made me join DSA is that after I learned about socialism from like that lens and not like the Red Scare lens that I'm sure most of us grew up with, I started doing a bunch of research on various orgs. When Occupy happened, I was especially like, okay, we need like an organization, like an actual organization. And, to this day, I still get emails from all sorts of other orgs, but DSA was the one that fit my, I guess, my politics the most. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Sarah?
Sarah, you're not off mute yet.
Thank you for that. So I did not grow up like politically raised at all. I grew up in the South. My mom sort of worked like at the grocery store, and my dad was discriminated a lot based on jobs. He's Native American, and seeing like how they struggled to sort of like keep money in the house to raise us. We grew up on government assistance, things like that. And when Bernie 2016 happened, I actually just gave birth to my kiddo. So that was sort of the starting point of realizing, like, seeing all my neighbors in the South like really struggle just for like basic things, stereotyping the South, things like that. And so when Bernie 2016 came about, that was the first time that I had heard someone talk like he did, talk about a better future, talk about healthcare for all. And so having my daughter sort of like bringing her to all these like Bernie 2016 canvases, like in a stroller. Luckily I had like a really amazing partner who helped with that, but it definitely like spearheaded the chance that like, she's going to grow up in a world where climate change exists, things like that, sexism. And so that spearheaded leading the 2016 Bernie campaign, and then just continuing into Cincinnati. She goes to all the DSA meetings, and she's sort of like the source of like, she loves DSA and she understands what it means, and that's really cool. And so raising like the next generation of socialists is like the thing that keeps me going during the really rough times of DSA.
Thank you so much, Sarah. All right, I think we have another question here. What is the project or campaign that you are most proud of in your time in DSA? And let's see who can answer that. Grace.
Yeah, thank you. So the one that jumps to mind first is my time working as I was the deputy campaign manager for Jabari Bridgeport in 2020, which was just an incredible and insane moment to be engaged in any type of socialist organizing, but particularly in New York City in 2020. I mean, there was the pandemic that completely threw out a lot of the standards and plans we had at the beginning of the campaign. We also had the protests in 2020 that like rejuvenated and breathed life into a lot of work, but being part of something that ushered so many socialists into office was incredible. But really what I learned from that campaign that is most important is what I now think of as the hallmark of any DSA campaign or effort, legislative, electoral, union, like labor, whatever it is that we as DSA must always try to create a collaborative culture that brings people together and truly values all the energy and skills that people want to contribute. Doing that online during 2020 was pretty hard, but I think now having seen how lots of different types of campaign works, like the DSA difference is believing that anyone can bring crazy value and talent, and that in fact we have to find and bring in as many people into campaigns to make them successful. We can't gatekeep. We can't create these Baroque hierarchical structures, but really just value everything that someone wants to put into the work and use that to exponentially increase our chance of success and what we win at the end.
Thanks, Grace. I'm actually going to ask all of our candidates to answer this question. So how about we go to Renee next?
Thank you. I'm going to cheat and split my answer into the two things I would say I'm most proud of. The first is in 2018, when Julia Salazar was our first state legislative candidate in New York City DSA. The Brooklyn Democratic machine tried to throw her off the ballot, claiming that she hadn't been a resident for the requisite 5 years. And they specifically relied on her last year at college when she had been a student in New York, and arguing that she didn't have residency at that point. And I, through the mysteries of the universe, was pretty expert in all of the issues around voter registration, student voting, and residence that were at issue in the trial, and I represented her, and I beat the party lawyer at all three levels of court, and she stayed on the ballot and got elected. And the following summer, when the New York City best rent control laws in years passed, it felt like the accumulation of a movement lawyer's dream, which is to win a case that creates the space for that kind of electoral and then policy victory. And then the other thing would be helping to create California DSA. It's the first functional statewide organization in contemporary DSA history, and I was a key part of that on the state exploratory committee as representative for East Bay, and then on the planning committee, which was a 5-person committee that helped get it off the ground. And we're still in early days and haven't had a really big campaign, but it's been really gratifying to build power together with other people in the state and lay down the tracks that I hope are going to lead to a lot of further success. Thanks.
Thanks, Renee. All right, let's go to Rael.
Yeah, I think the campaign that although I didn't do as much as I wish I could have, New Deal for CUNY really makes me proud, just because it's where I got radicalized. But the project and campaign that really I'm 1,000% proud of is Vanessa Gudello's campaign in Lower Hudson Valley, Westchester County. We really threw everything we had at it. Unfortunately, we couldn't win the campaign, but I think that not only did it show me that upstate chapters are really well developed in New York State, it also showed me that we can win outside of the city. Sometimes you kind of get into this, and obviously Sarahana won that cycle, so that was definitely cemented. But sometimes before that, you kind of felt oh man, maybe this is just something that can happen in urban centers, and then you knock on a door of some dude that is in a wooded area where you think you're gonna get murdered, and they're yeah, I love Vanessa, this is great. So I'm really proud of what we did. Unfortunately, we couldn't get kind of clutch the win, but I'm super proud of Lower Hudson Valley and all the stuff that all of the people did there.
Thanks, Rael. Let's do Mel next.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of tough because I've worked on so many different campaigns, but I mean, project, yeah, I'll stick to the project I'm most proud of, which is the Black and Brown Alliance of Detroit DSA, which, that came about actually after the 2019 convention. I attended a panel with comrades from the Afro-Socialist and Socialist of Color caucus, and I mean, not a panel, a breakout, and came back to Detroit and said we need something like this, and that became the Black and Brown Alliance. And so since then, building up leaders who are Black and Brown has been truly one of my proudest achievements. Again, it's so important to me, and I think it should be so important to everybody in the org to make sure that our org is representative of the multiracial working class. And so, yeah, I've been really proud of seeing people come through, and, people don't have the training. They don't have, sometimes in a lot of cases, we're dealing, as Black and brown people, we're dealing with imposter syndrome and feeling like we're not, good enough to be leaders. But through the Black and Brown Alliance, having, so many good relationships and seen so many leaders come out of that, has been my proudest achievement. Thanks.
Thanks, Mel. Let's do Sarah next.
Yeah, so my favorite campaign that I've worked on, so I could say, like, I'm super proud of our chapter for turning out once again for like another abortion campaign after just doing it last year and keeping up the same enthusiasm, seeming like we'll do this fight forever. But my personal favorite campaign or project that I've worked on was, we did a huge fundraiser for local 3G, the Kellogg's workers in Michigan. And our chapter turned out, we were kind of in a lull because of COVID and having to do online meetings and things like that. So this was our first big in person, really outside of a general meeting getting together. And our chapter really showed up. We raised over $6,000. It was a lot of fun. We did a bowl-a-thon, and then just getting to talk to the workers. And we had 2 letter writing campaigns leading up to the big bowl-a-thon event. And they had put all of our letters and everything that we had written them into a binder. So it was next to when people picked up their strike fund money every week. And that was really heartfelt and really cool to be a part of. And Cincinnati really showed up for that. And that was really cool. So that was my favorite thing I've worked on.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So I think that leaves Colleen.
Yeah, thanks. I think I will also maybe cheat and talk about 2 things, if that's okay. First is the recommitment drive, because it was, a really ambitious project. And so centrally important to the work of our organization. We wanted to bring together all the different national bodies to try to collaborate on it. We wanted to have at-large member engagement and get them meaningfully plugged into the work. And the results, undeniably had a positive impact on our organization in terms of developing leadership for chapters. We raised just under $200,000 in dues funds, and a lot of that was recurring. A good chunk of that is going to funding the matching funds for offices pilot that's happening right now. That's super exciting. And we also renewed 6,000 members in our organization over, basically 2 months, with, so it shows a lot of potential for when we're really dedicated to this work. And so many people were involved in that, and I feel really proud. And the other thing too is my experience outside of DSA, but as a union member, really transforming my union. And when we won the strongest contract that our local or our bargaining unit had ever had historically. And, it was a multiracial union. We had multilingual people, we had multi-generational folks, and we all really came together and committed to really organizing. We did a march on the boss where he hid in his office from us while we were outside, banging pots and pans and chanting. And that was really, really powerful. We went from a place where when I joined, the union leader at the time was making deals on behalf of us without consulting with members. And then we went to this really robust democratic organization that again, put that towards concrete wins and really brought us together. So I'm so grateful that I had that experience as well. So those are the 2 for me.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Okay, so we are out of time for questions. I'm a little disappointed. Some of y'all there were no spicy questions in here, maybe for another time. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to Grace, who is going to go over the SMC NPC candidate platform.
Sorry, took a sec to get the video on. All right, hi again. Happy to talk about the platform that we have now finalized and put on the website and everything, so it's official. So the Slate and created this along with many involved members of SMC, but we really wanted to articulate what was driving us not only to run for NPC, but what our priorities and guiding principles would be once we were there. So there are seven tenets here, and I'll briefly talk about each of them, but I would encourage all of you to check out the link that Wamik just shared in the chat to dig into it more and to talk to us about it as you have questions. So the first thing we discuss is the need to move our electoral work forward, not backwards. And to us, this really means bolstering the victories that we have experienced across the country by improving what works, and not by imposing impunitive measures to make up for some organizing shortcomings. So we really want to strengthen our electoral infrastructure across all chapters and use campaigns, and even in the case where there are already elected officials, like really try to build organizing relationships with candidates and elected so that we can work together to towards a model of co-governance. The second principle is building strong chapters and organizing members. So we as a Slate think DSA is already a strong organization, but there's a lot that we can do to improve our recruitment and retention, and that means we have to be really intentional about it. You know, our members join because they want to be politically active. They want to be part of an organization that they think is making change. So we need to strengthen our internal practices to make sure that members stay engaged in the work that they want to be doing, the work that inspired them to join DSA in the first place. And that means creating infrastructure in all of our chapters to enable this to happen, to stay in touch with members, to onboard members, and to make sure that members don't accidentally let their membership lapse. We also commit strongly to multiracial organizing. We know, I think everyone in DSA knows that the organization is not yet reflective of a multiracial working class, but we can and need to be doing things to change that. Such as strategically building relationships with organizations that have constituencies in working class Black and Brown communities. And we need to really seriously invest DSA resources and energy into developing the POC leadership that already exists within the org, and that can, get more of that leadership that we need to build a strong multiracial organization. Then we have a plank for labor, a key plank for us, and I think everyone is really excited by the thrilling moment we're in for labor. But we know that the left wing of that movement is struggling to cohere. DSA could have a real leading role here by continuing the rank and file organizing that we're doing, getting more members into staff, and really working to undo the structural impediments that exist to labor organizing. Next, we want to make sure we fight the right, unite the left. Also, a amendment that SMC is backing in convention. So it's everyone knows the political forecast right now is not super optimistic. There's fascists that are looking to oppress us. They want to destroy what remains of our social safety net. We're looking at liberals and Democrats that are trying to propose solutions or saying that they're the only ways to stop this impending doom, but we know that their solutions are weak at best and often will actually serve the same ends as the right. So we as DSA need to articulate a clear socialist vision, an alternative to what liberals are saying, while working in coalition with aligned groups to really fight this fascism on the ground. Next, we want to make sure that we are part of creating a generative, a democratic, and comradely organizing culture. So as leaders and really just as members of the organization, we have rights and responsibilities. And if we all are elected to the NPC, we really are committed to modeling comradeship, trust, and respect towards our fellow leaders, but all members. That means treating everyone, with good faith, exploring what they mean by comments, not really just not putting anyone on blast to score political points, but recognizing that we are part of the same organization and need to work together to make it stronger. And then finally, but certainly not least importantly, we need to have a prolific and material internationalism. We recognize that DSA is just a part of a larger international movement. And so we are committed to continuing to build relationships with other socialist and leftist organizations around the world, while continuing to work to dismantle the oppressive and imperialist policies that we have in our own country. So I will stop there and just end by saying that we put a lot of thought into this platform. I think it reflects a lot of the different strengths and particular interests of the entire slate, and that we're excited not only to hold ourselves accountable to the standard, but to the standard set in this platform, but to really work with all of the elected leaders to move the org in a positive direction, one that we see as outlined in this platform. So I encourage everyone to take a deeper dive, read about it. We're all on the convention Slack, so we would love to hear questions you have about it. And yeah, I'll hand it back to Christian. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Grace. Super exciting to see that come together. Again, the link was dropped in the chat, so feel free to check it out. Feel free to share it with anyone who might have any questions about the SMC slate. I know I will be ranking our SMC candidates very highly and would encourage you to do the same. However, if you still have questions or concerns or just want to chat more with any of the SMC slate candidates before making your decision on who you're voting for NPC at this convention, we will have a link that's being dropped in the chat for you to sign up to talk to somebody. Again, it's really, really important that you not just sort of, take what you read on Twitter or hear secondhand, but have the opportunity to ask these questions directly. Always the best practice is just calling people up and making those asks. So any one of our SMC slate candidates would be happy to talk to you. Again, that link is now in the chat. So feel free to use it. But that is it for our call. Thank you all so much for joining us today, especially on a Sunday. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good week, and hopefully we'll see many of you in Chicago. Bye, everybody. Solidarity.